Thank you, Svetlana. For our next panel, cybersecurity in crypto space, I'd like to introduce the Chief Information Security Officer at Crypto.com, Jason Lau.
Hello, everyone. How's the mic? Very good. Thanks for coming today. I know it's a very busy schedule, so I'll just jump straight into this. So my name is Jason from Crypto.com. I'm also the International Association of Privacy Professionals Regional Co-Chair. I'm also an adjunct professor of cybersecurity. So I'm very passionate about this. I've got a guest panel today of some specialists in cybersecurity. So why are we even here? So the World Economic Forum last few days just published a new report about the biggest business risks to different countries. Now, if you look at that list, it's the first time ever where countries like the United States, Canada, Italy, Germany, etc., have listed cybersecurity as the #1 business risk. Now, in Malta, unfortunately, cybersecurity is not yet on that list. So with the MFSA, our buddies over there, with the new cybersecurity framework that has come out, the guidance framework, we can talk more about that. So welcome to the stage, and we'll talk more about this now. Hartej, co-founder and president of Hosho. Thanks, man. Have a seat. We've got Jean-Michel, co-founder of Kralanx Cybersecurity in Malta. Thanks, man. Next, we have Efrem Borg, head of information security at MITA in Malta. Last but not least, Anatoliy, CTO of Status. Very good. So let's just jump straight into this. It's fantastic that we've got a group of cybersecurity professionals like yourselves. As I mentioned, we've got a mic check.
Check.
There we
Mic
go.
check. We're in business. We're in business, gentlemen.
Excellent.
The acoustics in this room are not the best, so
yeah,
we're
no
going to
problem.
speak very loudly into the mic.
Excellent. So we're short on time, so we're going to go through kind of like a rapid-fire set of questions. And the reason why we're here today is obviously the topic about cybersecurity in the crypto space. So in the last, say, 18 months or so, we've seen a lot of exchanges get hacked. Up to date, there's about 1.8 billion worth of money being hacked from exchanges. And just in 2018, we've seen that 60% of it comes from that calendar year. So I'd like to ask you guys, what can we do? What do we do? How do we fix this problem? How do we know that the exchange that we're going to be using from these guys over here or these guys are safe? What do we do? What do these people need to do to make us trust them? So maybe we start with on the far left, and then we'll come cycle over this way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so transparency needs to become a standard in this industry. We have cryptocurrency exchanges. There's a new one being made every single day. You have an announcement of a brand new cryptocurrency exchange coming out. But yet, we don't have a standard in the industry that as an exchange, you have to engage with third parties to conduct penetration testing, social engineering, VAPT testing, data leak discovery. Do you have a CISO at the company that even thinks about your security? We have brand new exchanges being made where they don't have anybody employed in-house who even handles security, and they point the finger at the CTO. CTOs are not in charge of security. And employees of exchanges need to be very highly trained to think about things like ransomware and phishing attacks. Majority of the exchanges that have been getting attacked are still getting attacked by phishing attacks, where one of the employees is clicking on the wrong email. And a very common phishing attack that's been going around has been one where the PDF has one of your passwords from one of your old accounts. And so you recognize the password that is one of your old passwords, and that's the name of the PDF file. And as soon as you click it, the hacker now has gained access to your whole computer and is working their way towards your email. Your
Sure.
email is one of your most sensitive pieces of information to start learning about you, and they can lock you out of your own account. And then one thing I'll quickly mention is that it's not just about companies and influencers and famous people. If you are a target, especially if you're in this industry, especially if you publicly talk about the fact that you have crypto, and too many people aren't thinking about some of the basics. And I would suggest going on Twitter and looking at a recent tweet by Edward Snowden, where he talks about what he does to protect himself on his personal mobile device. And granted, we don't all have to be as secure as Edward Snowden, but we should be thinking about the basics: two-factor authentication, using different passwords everywhere, being mindful of new phishing attacks, and even simple things like, do I leave my mobile phone on the table unlocked and just leave it there, and to let someone come and pawn me? These are the types of things that people in our industry with even a few Bitcoins should be thinking about, and to not think, oh, well, I'm just a small guy, I'm not famous, no one knows me. Everybody is a target if you use the internet and you made an account on Facebook or PayPal. PayPal, every time you send money to someone on PayPal, that's data stored on the web. And if a hacker can gain access to that server. But I'll let you guys chime in more and stop.
Yeah, so Jean-Michel,
fine.
Great comment. So what do you have to add to that? I think
I think Hartej made some really good points, actually. I think the two main issues are the fact that there is no existing standard yet as far as security goes in the crypto space. That would be the first one. And the second issue, I think, would be that there, again, as Hartej said, there's no single individual responsible for security. So CISOs and CTOs inherently have conflicting interests. And they're two different skill sets. It's like, I mean, if you look at sort of the healthcare space, you can't ask a pediatrician to do an anesthesiologist's job. They're completely two different streams. As far as the standards go, or let's talk about the CISO really. The MFSA have released a bunch of cybersecurity guidelines which mandate that all regulated exchanges with Malta need to have a CISO. So that's already a really good first step. Like once you have a single individual who's responsible, someone you can point the finger to take ownership, I think that already solves a huge issue. As far as standards go, let's face it, the banking world, the insurance world, pretty much every financial sector out there is subject to hacks, like pretty much every other entity. The crypto space is young, therefore a standard hasn't really had time to be created.
Kind of like PCI compliance or HIPAA.
Exactly. So this is actually something which we try to look at. Originally we had this idea to create, when I say we, I mean Kralanx. We had this idea to create this full-blown standard that might have been a little bit too expensive to adopt and a little bit too complicated to get people to jump on board in. However, what we did instead was take a sort of reverse approach, would be start with something small and then expand to something bigger. And the way we did that was by giving exchanges and ICOs their own white hat army of hackers, so essentially a 24/7 SOC on steroids, so they can fight fire with fire. I mean, they're against armies of hackers every day. Why don't they have their own armies?
Sure. So let's take a break from the crypto side. Maybe let's talk about, you're based in the government here. What are you doing in regards to security for the government? So, a lot of the times the government level security, that's the type of thing that we want in the crypto space. But tell us about what some of the initiatives that you have and what you're doing there.
Obviously, I was a bit concerned because I'm coming from a different sector, but speaking with the panel beforehand, I can very much relate with the concerns in the industry of crypto space as well. So protecting the government, I think that it is essential to have a framework, a comprehensive framework going through from detection, protection, governance, and also awareness. All these four are important pillars to ensure a comprehensive cybersecurity posture. Starting from detection. Government of Malta has invested heavily in artificial intelligence, so boosting our capabilities in detection, maybe in the early stages of an attack. We have progressed from a state whereby operations used to notify us with abnormalities in their domain to a state whereby we are notifying operations with abnormalities we are detecting on their infrastructure. Progressing to protect, and here I can continue building with what Jean-Michel was stating, having a comprehensive assessment framework, so built from pen testing, red teaming, vulnerability assessment, done in a continuous and circular manner, so testing, identifying vulnerabilities, fixing vulnerabilities, and then retesting. So it's a continuous cycle that has to keep on happening. Progressing to the governance, so we're strong promoters of building and having a strong information security policy, including aspects such as backup, such as patch management, also including cloud security, because that is where we're going, even from a government perspective, and also having governance activities to ensure that the IS policy, information security policy, is actually in place. Finishing off with the awareness aspect, awareness and education, so having a skilled workforce, being able to tackle, to handle incidents in a professional manner, but not only instilling a culture of thinking about cybersecurity, thinking security first, designing with security in mind, within our agency, but also within the public sector, so providing also our clients with information on how secure and how they can optimize their environments as well.
Perfect. So we've talked about the basics, we've talked about some frameworks, we've talked about some good best practices. So Nikolai, what are you, from your perspective, what are you seeing are the big issues, or what are you doing in your company that can help in the crypto space?
Thanks, Jason. I think I'd like to add up on what Hartej said, and Hartej managed to outline at least a couple dozen things any crypto holder or maybe even any online user should follow these days. And it shows one thing that we have discovered in as early as 2012, because we've been challenged with keeping our investments secure, and back then you had no one to rely upon, and people were congratulating crypto as something being trustless. But in effect, when you actually start to interact with crypto and you start to care about security and you try to follow all these dozens of things Hartej mentioned, you realize that there's always trust somewhere. I'm a software developer, so I am able to download the Bitcoin, say, Qt client source code and compile it, but I'm not able realistically alone to validate the whole source code to be sure there's no malicious code that will steal my private keys. So I have to put trust into someone who did it, like maybe Hartej and his team or someone else. And it goes everywhere, like computer OS, Windows, Mac, Linux, like hardware wallets, compilers, CPUs. You place trust everywhere. And that's just one thing. Other thing is placing trust in other people not running away with your money, be it an exchange or a bank. So there's plenty of trust, and just thinking that Bitcoin solves it all, it's not realistic at all. So you have to plan your defense in depth. You have to understand where you put trust and where is a good idea to put trust, or where you have to trust only yourself.
Okay.
As an investor, as a user, as a CTO, as a CISO, anyone. And you should understand the risk-reward. That's how I approach it.
Okay, very good. So we've got some good coverage here.
To piggyback on what he's saying about trust, I want to just quickly say that Satoshi Nakamoto in the Bitcoin white paper very clearly highlights his vision about the purpose of Bitcoin being to get rid of trusting human third parties.
Yeah.
And in that honor of thinking about cybersecurity in this industry, too many people are still trusting exchanges, and they're storing crypto on these exchanges. And the most recent hacks were actually, the last 4 major hacks were all related to security vulnerabilities in hot wallets. And many people in the industry don't even know the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet. And how much crypto do you trust to keep on a hot wallet? And how much crypto should you trust, which is none, on an exchange and to store it on an exchange? A cold wallet, just so you know, a cold wallet is a wallet that is not connected to the internet, and a hot wallet is one that is connected to the internet. And a great example of a great hardware cold wallet, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything, is a Trezor One or a Ledger, and it's a very safe mechanism for people to store their crypto. An average of about $2 million is stolen per day from exchanges. Not from one exchange, but from collectively all the exchanges, the amount of hacks that have been going on. And I just think it's a really good time for us as a community to come together and say we demand exchanges to show us that they are respecting security both in-house and that they have processes in place, and that they're showing their third-party reports. They have a third-party blue team, they have a third-party red team, and this is something that good companies pride themselves on. You want to show as a company that you respect security. You publicly should be giving your penetration testing reports to your clients, to your lawyers, to the government. Everybody will respect you more and your valuation will go up if you respect security. And I think it's shocking sometimes in the blockchain space, in crypto, when companies boldly disrespect security.
Sure. So that's a great point. So in order to build trust, we need defense in depth, we need transparency, we need to make sure that we follow the same type of traditional cybersecurity type of work that we do. We need some good frameworks, we need a good culture. So it's nothing new, we just need to apply what we know to a new industry. So I think that's really important. So that's a good first round. Now we're short on time, so what we're going to do is, for the next question, I'm going to ask all of you to share with me your insights, because you all come from different industries, on what cybersecurity challenges and issues are you thinking are going to be big, not for next year, but all the way up until 2025. Now let me start off just very briefly. Now, I want to bring a little prop. These are two pictures that my daughters did, right? Now, as a nice father, what would I do? I would tell them, put your name on the thing. Put your full name, put the date, write your name in Chinese, write your, the day that you did it, all this information. One of my daughters wrote it down. The other daughter says, that's way too much information you're collecting on me. Why do you need all of this information? I'll just write my first name. So data privacy is something that's going to be a big thing, right? We've got GDPR, we've got all these type of things blended in with security now. So I've talked about data privacy. Maybe you guys can share from your perspectives what you think will be big issues. And we'll start with you from this, going this way.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
2025, not next year.
2025, exactly. I'm like, that's the earliest horizon I'm even considering my thoughts. Like, I think that the biggest risk factor, and the hacks, most of the recent hacks showed, is actually the human factor. People make mistakes. People are susceptible to phishing, to being socially engineered, etc., etc. So for me, and it aligns with Satoshi vision, not the Bitcoin Satoshi vision, but the proper Satoshi vision, is to try to get rid of trust in human beings, myself first and foremost, as fast as possible. So we have to move to decentralized exchanges. We have to understand that even possessing customer data is a huge liability, as Mark Zuckerberg found out, right? The mere fact that Facebook has some, whatever, customer data subjects him to a risk of 5 billion fine. It's unacceptable. So as a firm looking to 2025 and beyond, you should be building your software and processes in such a way that you are never susceptible to such a problem. Get away from being able to access customer data, and the less you rely on human beings, the more secure you are.
So we've got data minimization here, that's good.
Yep.
The less that we store, the less that we can steal. So
Yep.
we're going to have, in 20 seconds or so, can you add to that?
I'll try. Okay, I'll just mention them. I think 2025 is a bit far-fetched. Like in our industry, we plan for 6 months or a year,
Sure.
because this is a dynamic industry.
Sure.
Two major challenges that we have: recruitment, finding the right people, and communication. Threat intelligence sharing, I think it's something that our industry can highly benefit from, and I think we have to make it work on a national level, but also on an international, on an EU, and on a global scale as well.
So I think that you have to build an ecosystem for that with a good sharing and a good community. So I think that's very important. And 20 seconds for you as well.
20 seconds, okay. So I think it's a mix of the availability of processing power,
Okay.
as well as the reliance of digitization in the first place. So your average Visa chip and PIN card has 7 times more power than the PC used to launch the first spaceship into a orbit. So as processing power becomes more widely available and data becomes more widely available, the weaponization of AI becomes more of a real threat.
Absolutely.
It's a scary thing already. Can you imagine how much scarier it's going to be in a couple of years?
One word, ransomware. It's not going anywhere, and I think it'll be very relevant. Now, it's going to be relevant next year. It'll be relevant in 2025. And for the government's perspective, that is the #1 way governments are being pawned.
Sure.
It's ransomware again and again and again. So I think it's ransomware, and the only thing I can add and say to that is phishing attacks are only solved by training your employees and being mindful of what are the latest phishing attacks.
Perfect. So we're going to need to conclude. So to add to what you mentioned, in addition to ransomware, I think as well we're going to see AI-powered malware that's got built-in ransomware into that. And the scary thing that we haven't seen yet, which we may see, maybe even in governments or in hospitals, is when cybersecurity threats impact lives. When you hack into an IoT device and you take somebody's life. So
yeah, like an example of that is when hackers hack into a baby monitor and we're sending spooky messages to a baby and they're watching the baby like, I see you. It's creepy, man.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I'd like to put your hands together for the great panel that we have, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you. Thanks, guys.